What's up, Sparkman family? It's your boy Sparkman, and welcome back to another video. Today, we are talking about the 2025 Mega Tins, and I'm so excited because it's tin season, and I always get excited to talk about the tins, what to expect, right? The anticipation. There's so much excitement. Definitely coming from last year as well, seeing that there was finally a success of those tins, of a lot of great things in those tins especially, and we're hoping for the same thing this year. Now, before we start talking about the tins as well, just want to let everyone know that I am doing a case giveaway of the newest set, Justice Hunters, coming out in August, so make sure to go check out that video. It's a couple videos ago where we talk about like market watch and stuff. You'll see a huge giveaway. Go check it out. You'll definitely want to enter because, again, it's a full case of the boxes of Justice Hunters. It's going to be a great set, by the way, so I really do recommend going out there and then subscribing, of course, to my channel. Appreciate it in advance, and of course commenting to get yourself an entry into that, giveaway. Now, let's talk about the tins, man, because again, like I said, I'm so excited to talk about this one. I think there's a lot of anticipation for this year, coming off a really good tin set last year and seeing how well it has done over time now. And I think one of the things we talked about the past few years was that there was no real progress what we saw with the tins, right? And every time I would cover the tins, I get a lot of backlash because people felt like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, Sparkman. But all in all, when the tins finally came out, it really did crash and burn. It didn't do so well, right? Last year was not that. For example, like last year was actually a successful year, and I'm kind of happy. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I'm really happy because we needed a success part for these tins, right? Because we were just shaking our heads. We didn't know what was going on. We just finally feel good that finally something went right, and we're hoping for more of the same this year. And Konami needs to get it right, right? They need to get it right. I think there's a lot of frustration with how much the game costs, the entry to for new players to enter the game, and how much it costs on that level. There's just also a discussion here where we have to talk about short prints, half prints, all these things, right? And I'm hoping Konami does not do that this time around. Again, reprints are meant to be given to the community at an easier rate. When you do short prints, half prints, these types of things, you create a very negative impact going into the tins. Yes, you'll make things more expensive, sure, if that's what you're trying to do here. However, again, the reprint is supposed to help the player get access to the things they need, and that's what we are trying to do. And say for the most part when we talk about reprint stuff is that getting easy access to things, right? So, for example, they just reprinted Primite Lorely Load, but it was not really that accessible because it was kind of like a short print. So why even reprint it if you're going to go about that way, right? That's why players get frustrated. People get frustrated in general because if you're going to reprint something, reprint it correctly, reprint it the right way, do it right by the people, right? The fans community that want to get the card, access to the card. That's the whole point, right? We don't want to spend $30, $50 on a card when you're trying to reprint cards, so that way it only costs maybe $5, $10, right? Why are you going to try and make it expensive? That's not the point, right? So again, there's a lot to look forward to in the tins this year because I think there's a lot of cards that we could see become Starlight Rares as well, right? So the one aspect is now that changes the QCR to a Starlight Rare. I think there's a lot of excitement with that as well because they're continuing that trend of a shiny card in every single pack. And I do quotation marks because at this point, I don't value the Starlight Rare or the Core Synergy Rare as a high rarity card, but I value it in a sense of it's shiny, it's nice to look at, it's nice for the player base to have something to put in their deck that looks really cool, sure, and their collection, sure, right? When we talk about high price tags, it no longer is really that anymore, considering the fact that they're kind of given out for free basically, right? When we look at this. One thing to note is while the tins prices have gone up from many years ago when it was once $20, now it's $23.99 for the tin. Now there is another aspect of this. If you want the tin, you can also just get the packs for only $20.99, right? So there's that option as well. If I were you personally, I would get the tin. I just like the tins because honestly they're a collectible thing as well. I will say that they are introducing these mega pack bundles, and you see that there's 3 designs, so there could be actually value in collecting the 3 as well over time. And I always say it's funny that anything can be a collectible, and something like that is a reason to collect as well, and players probably will collect it in that regard, both the tin and then these 3 different artworks of packaging. That's usually how the collection of players, the community, think. And that's good. I mean, good marketing on their part, Konami, for thinking about that way, and good job for kind of making it cheaper if you just don't want the tin, right? So you just want to open packs. So there's that regard as well. Again, so I do think there is an aspect where this tin can really succeed in all 4 fronts. They just can't do things where they're short printing stuff, half printing stuff. They're also not giving cards that the players want or need, right? For example, you can't just put in crappy cards and like 2-3 good cards in this. Players are going to get really disappointed, and they're going to really come out with a negative stance on the tins. You need to really deliver again on these tins, just like you did last year. You have to have a decent amount, right? Again, last year's tins was incredible. We look at the 25th anniversary tin of Dueling Mirrors, and it did its job, right? Now, what cards should we expect in this year's tins? I'm putting Dragon Master Major. Yes, I know it got reprinted in the latest Rarity Collection set, but I've said it time and time again. If you really want to win this crowd over, you want to win the community, you got to place this as a Starlight Rare in these tins. You got to. I think that would really put this tin over the top. You make this a Starlight Rare, you are going to make the community go crazy, right? Not only would this value go down and, goodbye to the value of this card, but for the most part, you would have everybody making waves to go and grab this card, right? So, that is one aspect, as well as collection, playability to this card. There's a lot that people want, and this card especially should be at the number 1 top of the board for Konami to reprint, right? And I say it as a Starlight Rare, not any other rarity. It has to be a Starlight Rare. If you do not put this as a Starlight Rare, I think the anticipation of wanting the card becomes less. It's still an expensive card because I believe it's still $30-some, right? Even after the reprint. However, making this a Starlight Rare, icing on the cake for the tins, because everything else in the tins I think would sell for itself, right? Because again, people really want this as a Starlight Rare. They really, really do, and I think it probably would win over the crowd. Now, what else can be in here, right? Mold Charming Parelia. These Mold Charming cards need to be in the tins. People need access to these cards at a very much cheaper rate, right? There's been reprints of some of these cards, and still they are expensive. So we need to see a reprint and an easier access to these cards from the tins as well. Morelios is the same regard. They need to have easy access, right? Molcharmi is just too expensive of a card. And these prices are not favoring the community. So what they need to do is reprint these cards immediately so players get access to it so they can play it in their deck. Dynamic Impulse is another amazing card that saw itself really increase over time and seen itself done well in the market, but players need access to cards like this to play in their deck. And these are staples. These are not cards that one deck can play, the 2 decks can play. This is a card where many decks needs these cards, right? So it's a must. It's a must. These are staple cards. Dominus Impulse and both Dominus Impulse and Dominus Purge need to see itself reprinted in the tins. I think it is a necessity, and it would be a home run again getting some of these cards in there. Now, again, I'll have a lot of cards here on kind of a list of what needs to get reprinted. Obviously, not every card will get reprinted because here, Konami is going to want to save some of these cards for future things. Sure, I get that. But take in consideration that 3/4 of this list needs to be in the tins. 3/4, right? I have 10 cards I'm going to show you today. We've gone through like 3 or 4 so far. At least 3/4 of this list needs to be in those tins. Without a doubt. Like, no questions, like, it needs to be in the tins. So again, not every card, but most of these cards need to be in there. Fiendsmith's Trapped. Look at this card, man. People were making fun of me when I said pick it up at $13. I really hope you picked it up at $13 because look at the price now, right? However, with reprint season coming, with the tins coming, this card needs to be announced in there. Fiendsmith Track needs to be a reprint immediately in those tins. So hopefully we see this appear in those tins coming in September as well. Chaos Angel was in last year's tins. Now, a lot of people are asking for similar cards from last year's tins in this year's tins. It's not going to happen. That's not realistic, everybody. It's not going to happen. We have to expect that there's going to be maybe 1 or 2 cards that could reappear in this year's tins, but you cannot expect many cards from last year's tin to expect in this year's tins. They're not going to do that. It would be just a disaster, right? People will get kind of frustrated because they're like, well, we already got access to those cards. Why would we want them again, right? Instead, a lot of the cards that people want from last year's tins, put them somewhere else. Put them in a different reprint. But there are major cards from last year's tins that need to be in this year's tins, and that's Chaos Angel. Chaos Angel definitely needs a reprint, and so as Stake Your Soul. Vanquish Soul stuff has gone up in price all across the board. I don't expect all the Vanquish Soul cards to get reprinted, but definitely Stake Your Soul needs to be in this year's tins as well. I would hopefully and hope that Konami is listening to some of these videos that people are asking them for reprints of certain cards, and this one is on the list as well. Lacrima, the Crimson Tears. This one is really a card that really exploded the last few months in price, but needs to be reprinted as well. It's from Rage of the Abyss. We saw this card around $7 for a long time. It exploded in price, like I said. But listen, again, some of these cards are a must. It needs to be seen in this year's tins. They are very expensive. As we can see, there's a lot of expensive cards in the market, a lot of stable cards in the market, a lot of cards you just need to play in viable decks to make them competitive to play in big tournaments, and you need some of these cards as a must. And these are so expensive that when creating the deck, you're at $500-600 already, and again, some of these cards you need 3 of for your main deck, extra deck, side deck, right? So there's the things to consider here, right? So these cards definitely need a reprint ASAP. Primite Lorely Load. Listen, everybody, I know we just got reprinted, but with SPL9 getting reprinted in the tins and then in Bonanza, we can see Primite Lorely Load also having that same effect. Reprinted in Monster Mayhem, reprinted in the tins, right? And I wouldn't be so doubtful that these would make it into the tins. This is a great card. It's still expensive because what they did with it in Monster Mayhem, they kind of short printed it. So we need to see this kind of reappear again in this year's tins, as the price is starting to already go up again for this card. Again, people are not opening Monster Mayhem, and that's building a lack of low listings and high price tags for this card. Yes, 61 listings, that's a lot. But again, people are not really wanting to open up Monster Mayhem, so the card access is not going to fully be there, right? So keep that all in mind as you're moving forward. Those are all the cards that I hopefully will be in the tins this year as a reprint. But talking about these tins again, I have a lot of hope this year. I really do. I think coming off last year where there was a lot of, I think there was a build-up to hoping there would be a lot in last year's tins, and then getting it was just everything for people, right? So I'm hoping the same here. Again, previous years before last year, there was a lot of disappointment, right? There was a lot of, oh, well, that's great that they're reprinting this, but what about the other 5 things, other 6 things, right? So again, they cannot miss in this year's tins. They have to continuously succeed and hit the mark. Players are telling you what they want. You have to go out there and put it on the board for them. Put it in these packs. You have to do it. Again, don't short print things. Don't half print. Don't try to mess with the community in any regard. You just can't. There's already a lot of negativity going out there with the community about this game, about what's going on in general. Make the community happy and give them what they need, right? And I'm a player that also plays for budget. I don't want to spend $600-700 every few months to build a deck. I want something that I can afford, and I know a lot of people out there that work a 9-to-5 job that does this as like a side thing to just have fun. Don't want to spend that every so often, right? They want to spend a muy pequeño, like a little amount. So that way they don't have to really dish out a lot, because listen, everybody, we know what's going on right now with the economy. It is very much a struggle. We don't need to spend $600 on a card game where it can make itself much cheaper by allowing players access to things much easier, making things more affordable, and just all in all, in sets, in general, making things easier to obtain initially as well. This way we wouldn't have to beg for reprints and wait so long for them as well. So there's things to consider in the future for sure, but seeing that we need certain reprints, you gotta hit the mark. Gotta hit the mark on this one. There's gonna be a lot of Starlight Rares in this one. There's a lot of excitement with that as well, as players are going to get really full access now to Starlight Rares for the first time at an easier rate. I think this tin will propel us to eventually have another rarity collection as well. That is my little prediction as well. And it will be with the aspect that the next rarity collection would take place with only Starlight Rares, right? Not the QCRs, replacing by the Starlight Rares. Again, we've talked about it a lot on the channel, but that is my biggest prediction for, the next year or so that will happen. And I think it will. I really, really think it will. They saw a lot of success with the rarity collection for the QCRs in that. I think they're going to repeat it now with Starlight Rares. Not the same cards, but close to it, right? So that's things to really think about as well. I hope they hit the mark with this. I cannot wait to see what comes out in this tin, the set list, all this fun stuff, because I do think it's gonna be a good. I really do think it's gonna be a good 10 year. I really do think so. But again, cross my fingers, praying to God, praying to the KONAMI gods that they're listening and really, really giving us what we need. I want to hear what you have to say in the comment section down below. Do you think it's going to be a disappointment? Do you think it's going to be a success? What do you want reprinted that I didn't name in the top 10 right here? And what do you think about Starlight Rares making its really appearance more so in these tins, seeing that we're pretty much getting a Starlight Rare per pack, right? So that's a lot to unpack, enjoy, anticipate. And man, September can't come fast enough, man. September cannot come fast enough. There is so much excitement for this one for sure. But we'll catch you next one. Please subscribe, comment, and peace out, YouTube.